Hello guys and welcome to another reading vlog. So while I was down for the count, I did read a lot of books and they all came from the library because that's where I get 97% of my books. So I thought I'd do a little shout out vlog to libraries because reading does not have to be an expensive hobby. It could literally be completely free. As far as I know, most countries have libraries, but I'm not 100% on that. But if you do happen to be in one of those countries that have a library, I highly recommend checking them out. So this batch of books were either DNFs or fantastic reads. There was no in between. So I'll start with the DNFs and work my way up to the best read for this little batch of books. So we'll start with The Day Tripper by James Goodhand. So this is set in the 90s and it's about a boy from England, and he wakes up one day at a completely different time in his life. So it's a time jumpy kind of book. It goes back and forth every day. He wakes up at a different point and he's trying to figure out how his life became what it became. So this was definitely pommy in it, and I did struggle with that. I also found the main character really unlikable, and the writing style just wasn't for me. I normally do love time jumping books like The Time Traveler's Wife or Patting Sylvie, but we've got blue here in the background, Double Cat Pat. And yeah, I just couldn't get into it. I'm sorry, it's actually getting hot, so I might just cool myself down by like 0.5%. It doesn't even help much. I don't know. Hello, beautiful. So I did DNF that book. And then I picked up Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens. And this is about a 17-year-old non-binary person named Ellery. So they are they, them. I think most of the characters in this book are queer. And it sort of seems to be possibly Greek gods. There's an allusion to a crossroads witch, which screams Hecate to me, but no one's actually named. And this other woman makes a bargain and ends up with a familiar named Knox. And once the lady completes her end of the bargain and is sent to what we assume is purgatory, Knox decides that he ain't going back. And he runs into Ellery and they decide to try and help him. And also discovering that there is magic in the world, which they didn't really believe, even though it seems in this world some people do believe in magic and spirits and things of that nature, and some don't. So the world building was a bit flimsy. I gave it 100 pages. I feel like there are fae and gods in this, but like I said, nothing's really named in terms of what mythology it belongs to. The main character pairing do seem to be a grumpy sunshine situation, with the they them being grumpy and the boy familiar being the sunshine. But overall, this was just too young, because it is YA, but it was veered way young and fluffy for me. There was no grittiness, no real sense of danger. It was very light. It was like middle grade YA. So I thought, nah, not for me. And then I picked up The Leaves by Jacqueline Rule. And this is about two women who are part of the Stolen Generation, which is when the colonizer Australians decided to take Indigenous Australian women's children from them and either place them into foster or adopt them out to white folks. So lovely, absolutely lovely stuff. And they have two sons and they sort of grow up together, but then one of the women dies and that son is sent into the foster system. So it supposedly looks at like the failures of the foster system and the correctional justice system and all of that jazz. It's a very depressing book, but the main thing for me is the writing style was just not my jam. It was very observational, as if someone is just describing everything that's going on, and that left me emotionally removed from the book itself, and I just couldn't get into it, so I decided to DNF it. And then we have The Echoes by E.B. Wild. So this is set between London and Australia, and it's about a man who has died and his ghost is haunting the flat he shared with his girlfriend, and he's sort of watching her in her grief and realizing that he didn't actually know her that well. So the premise sounded interesting to me, but the execution was not. So first of all, their relationship, toxic AF. Really unpleasant to read about how they were speaking to each other. And it then just jumps around past and present, Australia and London, and I just couldn't care. I didn't care. It didn't trigger the caring gene in me. So I also DNF'd that one. Now that brings us to the Goodreads that I had. So we have Boulder by Eve Baltazar. So this was translated by Merixel Hernando Marsal. And I gave this one a 4 stars. So this is about a sapphic couple who decide, well, one of them decides that she wants to have a baby, and sort of that whole thing and how it changes the relationship and their own personal desires and thoughts and feelings. This is more about the writing. I really didn't like the characters. I didn't care for the story, but the writing was exquisite. Absolutely beautiful. I can't even describe to you. It's just, especially, look, it did take a while for me to get into. I wasn't that invested in the start, hearing the main character having her sexcapades, but once they decided to have a baby, her experience of being the one that wasn't pregnant and the one that wasn't the biological mother was just perfectly done. I'll just read like a snippet, just one bit. So the biological mother has one day to herself, and that's a Wednesday, and it says, "She devours every Wednesday hour, because every other hour of every other day is like a vampire that wants her with a love that bleeds her dry." Just everything was gorgeous. It was beautiful. It was a delight to read these precious gems of sentences. And normally with motherhood books, you're in the perspective of the mother, not the partner. So I found that really fascinating and interesting, and I gave it a 4 star. Warm kitty, little ball of fur. And then we have The Butcher of the Forest by Premi Mohammed, and this is a novella, so it's a short story. And basically this was like Hansel and Gretel meets Pan's Labyrinth. It's very dark, it's very atmospheric, there's a haunted woods, and thus far only one person has ever entered and returned. And this tyrant ruler king's children disappear into the forest, so they come to this 40-year-old woman and tell her, "Go and find my children and bring them back, or I burn your entire village, starting with your family." So that's the motivation right there. So she knows less than 24 hours to retrieve the children, or the forest will claim them permanently. It is hella creepy. I enjoyed my time with it. It's very tricksy. She has these little magical tokens to try and help her and aid her through the forest and meeting these dangerous things, beings. The issue that I have, so I've given this 4.25, was that the way it ended felt like there was a part 2. It just felt like it was just gearing up. You know, it's like, okay, wow, this was the first part of this book, fucking amazing. And then all of a sudden, this thing happens and then it ends in a way and you're like, is there going to be more? Where is the rest of it? So that's the only thing that let me down. I just wanted more. I wanted to continue on. I love that the main protagonist is 40 years old. I love older protagonists in general, okay? They've lived their life, they've seen shit, they've got some knowledge, they've learned some lessons, they don't give a fuck anymore. I personally, every book that I've read with an older protagonist or someone 40 or up, has almost ended up being a favorite book every time. So cheers to older main characters, loved it, but also enjoyed my time with this book. Lots of riddles, lots of bargains, and lots of mayhem. And now we come to my favorite read of this reading blog, which is The Wren in the Holly Library in the Oak and Holly Cycle by K.A. Linder. This is an adult book. Look, did this book make me acutely aware of how long I have been single? Yes. Did I live vicariously through it? Yes. This is one of those cases where my 4.5 star rating is just based on pure enjoyment, kicking my feet, squealing, just having a grand old time. Is it an amazing piece of literature? No. But I read it all in one sitting and was highly entertained. This is basically an urban fantasy bisexual retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but make it Celtic mythology with some sex in there. This was not slow burn, okay? You will get the sexy times before 50% of the way through, which isn't my preferred manner of sex delivery between characters, but I'll take it. I will take it. The male character in this, Graves, can get it so hard. Book Boy Beast was delicious. Basically described as my ideal fictional looking man. You know, I think we've all got sort of idea of the epitome of what we're most attracted to, and this is a guy with pianist's fingers, because that's major for me. Someone with really good hands, especially looks like they can play the piano. Oh my God, it just does things. Maybe I have a finger fetish, probably. He's got, you know, blue-black tousled hair and chiseled cheekbones and grey stormy eyes and luscious lips and straight teeth. and he's obsessed with reading books, and he's also a badass. You know, he's deadly, he's dangerous. Everyone is scared of him. He lives in a manor. There's so many tropes in this. You know, the whole, oh, you must move in to my gorgeous manor with my exquisite library for your own protection. I will also be your teacher. So cue hot training scene. There is, though, the hint of a love triangle. We don't need another dick on the dance floor.
Too many dicks on the dance floor. Too many dicks on the dance floor.
Too many dicks.
Too many dicks on the dance floor.
Too many dicks.
Too many dicks on the dance floor.
Too many dicks.
I am not a triangle loving person. As you know, I'm a single line lady, and I hope that doesn't end up being the case. But I know with this kind of book, that's an eaten up thing. That's a tasty appetizer for a lot of people, so it could end up happening, but I'm like, we don't need it. But I loved it. You know, there's found family, she's a thief. Oh my God, I haven't said what the story's about. So yeah, Beauty and the Beast retelling. You have a female thief who is amazing at her job. She gets tasked with stealing something from this guy, unaware that he's a monster. So monsters exist in this world, hence the urban fantasy kind of situation. He ends up striking a new bargain with her. Come work for me. I will pay you more and I will teach you and enhance your skills. And so she's like, okay. But then a lot of shit goes down. There's like an underworld thing. You find out that her ex-girlfriend went missing and she's been presumed dead, and that's heavily affected her. Then her best friend / her found family are attacked, and she's like, where do my loyalties lie? And there's an interesting, you know, amount of different type of paranormal creatures in this. The main couple, highly reminiscent of Feyre and Rhysand. If you loved that scene in A Court of Mist and Fury, where she wears a barely there dress and has to sit on his lap and pretend to be his plaything, where he plays Lord of the Underworld, you'll love this book because there is a scene almost identical to it. Almost identical. So yeah, if you love that element and you just want a smutty, fantastic time with a Feyre Rhys B-grade couple, I give you The Red in the Holy Library. 4.5 stars. My favorite read of this week. Like I said, it's just what I needed. It's what I needed, and it delivered. So those were the books that I read in this little batch, which were all sourced from my local library. Until next time, stay wild, Star Child.